Good evening. My name is Phyllis Loveland. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Engagement here at Cure HHT, and we're very excited to have you here on HHT Awareness Day. We have a very exciting webinar scheduled tonight, and you're going to learn so much about the state of HHT and all of the updates from the organization. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to pop on. We have a little bit of time before we get started. And if you want to drop us a chat and let us know where you're from, that would be great. We will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar for the last few minutes. So you can also drop questions in there as we go along and you're thinking out about things. Please put them in there and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Whatever we aren't able to get to tonight, we will send some responses after the webinar this week. The webinar is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to go back and view it again if there's anything that you miss or you want to hear again. So we're going to give it a couple more minutes and as everyone jumps on. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy to have everyone here tonight. And with that, I think we're going to get started. I want to start by introducing our esteemed guest speaker, Marianne Clancy. She is our Chief Executive Officer here at Cure HHT. She's also our Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships. Marianne has been the CEO of Cure HHT for 25 years. Under her leadership, she initiated the Cure HHT Research Grant Funding Program and established Young Researchers. Under her tenure, through the investment of a $3 million seed grants over the years since 2004, HHT research funding has been leveraged nearly $60 million in private and public investment. She has been instrumental in providing the patient voice to the design of HHT clinical research trials. Marianne has expanded access to expert HHT care through the establishment and management of 33 HHT centers of excellence in North America and 25 centers globally and growing. Her work in obtaining release of the HHT gene patents led to the launch of genetic testing for HHT in North America. Her team has led collaborations to enable the robust growth of the international scientific conferences in HHT since 2001 as the sole sponsor of these convenings. She is the principal investigator in the patient-led International HHT Research Network funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Rare as One grant. Through Cure HHT, she has led funding initiatives for 2 international HHT guidelines conferences, resulting in standardized HHT diagnostic and treatment guidelines for healthcare professionals. Marianne has led the HHT legislative initiatives and secured federal funding for HHT Centers of Excellence in the U.S., launched the first comprehensive natural history registry study, and continuing medical education program. She has been a global educator and advocate on HHT issues to government agencies, physicians, patient, and biotech pharmaceutical partners. In 2022, Marianne created a therapeutic arm here at Cure HHT to accelerate research, translation, clinical trials, and new therapeutic development for the global community. Prior to employment with Cure HHT, Marianne founded a healthcare consulting company specializing in transdermal oral drug delivery and oral healthcare. Marianne's work experience included national healthcare management with Oral-B Laboratories, a Gillette company, for 14 years. She was responsible for development and implementation of North American University sales and marketing programs, management of clinical research trials, new product evaluation, and development of corporate training worldwide. Marianne has conducted lectures to healthcare professionals throughout North America and has published numerous articles and was a contributor to several textbooks. She also held faculty positions at Forsyth Dental Center, Boston University, and Tufts University School of Dental Medicine. As I said earlier, today is Global Awareness Day, and we're so happy to have everyone here. Marianne is going to be talking mainly tonight about how your donations are at work, all of the different things that Cure HHT is funding, and how we're driving all of these initiatives. Our centers of excellence, our biobank repository, our scientific conferences, all of the research and clinical trials, and of course, all of the research resources that we offer here at Cure HHT. One of the resources that we have available to our patients is our HHT International Guidelines booklet. That's available here. You can fill out a form. There's lots of ways to get a copy of it, to reach out to us. We are certainly happy to send that to you. It also has checklists and all of the different areas for you to follow and to provide to your physician or anyone else in your family that may need it. We have lots of opportunities to participate in research. Again, Marianne will be talking a lot about that tonight. It's very exciting. And of course, we're in the middle of our Awareness Month campaign, and we do have a match. And all of our donations by June 30th will be matched. So we hope you'll support us in our efforts to reach our goal. So that's still ongoing. So we really appreciate your support. We couldn't do the important work we do without you, our incredible donors. We do have 2 upcoming events. We have a Cozy Games for a Cure this week. We have a wonderful patient who organizes this game for all of our gamers out there. There's more information about that on our website. And then this Friday, one of our pharmaceutical partners, Diagonal Therapeutics, is hosting a wonderful in-person event at their lab. There's lots of details online about it. We welcome you to come. They have an exciting day planned for our patient community, and we hope you'll be able to join us. It will be a great way to finish out this wonderful HHT Awareness Month. Just a couple housekeeping important notes. Post your questions to the speaker using the Q&A module. We'll ask as many questions as time allows. Use the chat to interact with those attending the session, and the session will be recorded. And on that note, I'm going to pass it on to Marianne.
Thank you, Phyllis, and welcome, Cure HHT community. Good evening. I'm so delighted to be here tonight. As you know, today is HHT Global Awareness Day, and I'm thrilled to be celebrating this day with you. This also is marking 35 years of Cure HHT. And so we really have 2 celebrations, and I'm here this evening to talk about beyond the visible, really what's going on behind the scenes with our organization, and to share the important work that the whole team works every day on your behalf to bring to light important breakthroughs that are occurring for hope for us, for all of us, and our families. So I am just going to share my screen and get my slides starting from my slideshow. Let me find where it was working earlier. There we go. There we go. So my goal tonight is to offer hope and share the excitement of how much is going on behind the scenes that really will have an impact on all of us that are affected with HHT in the next several years. You know, Cure HHT was founded just about 35 years ago, and we're more than an advocacy organization. We've been a lifeline for literally the 1.8 million people that have this disease globally, but also the majority of which are not diagnosed. We see ourselves really not as just advocates. We are here to educate, to support, to ensure that people can connect with each other, to create access to care to people that truly understand and importantly, to drive research. If I'm to reflect on the 35 years of progress, this organization started with a handful of families in 1991, and it was founded by a group of dedicated patients around a table, families, one physician, Dr. Bob White, and we were founded as the HHT Foundation International. In 2014, we rebranded to reflect what we wanted to see occur, and we rebranded the organization as Cure HHT, and at the same time expanding our global mission. As Phyllis mentioned, in 2022, we launched the therapeutic arm, and at that same year, we were able to be awarded a $2 million per year grant through the Department of Health and Human Services for our HHT Centers of Excellence for Care. So that grant is distributed to them. In 2024, our long-awaited registry, the Comprehensive HHT Registry of the United States, surpassed 1,000 patients, and I'll talk a little bit later as to why that registry is important. And our first findings were published, and for the first time, we have actual data to support what we all know as we are living with this disease every day. But what science needs is data. And in 2026, we are at least 55 centers of excellence globally and growing. Our pazopanib trial is advancing as the first HHT treatment. We know that HHT affects at least 1 in 4,000 people. And if you've been around as long as I have, I was diagnosed in 1994, was estimated that it was 1 in 10,000. Then it went to 1 in 8,000. Then it went to 1 in 5,000. And it's the more people we diagnose, the more common we know this is. It is the second most common inherited bleeding disorder. Yet 70 to 80% yet remain undiagnosed. And we know that millions are at risk for life-threatening complications, all that can be prevented. And our real stories and our faces from, again, of HHT through the years of families, all have the same common thread. We were aware that nosebleeds ran in our family, and that's just how it is. We couldn't find a physician familiar with HHT, and I didn't realize that I needed to see a doctor. So, our hope is to provide you with the resources that you need to empower yourself to take charge of your health and for that of your family. So our mission is built around 5 pillars. The first, research. We are the research funding arm in providing small seed grants, 30,000, 50,000, and even 100,000, now growing to $200,000, to our scientists and our researchers to drive patient-centered science, to give us better options for therapies and ultimately a cure. We serve as a catalyst in opening and certifying centers of excellence so that you have access to people who really understand HHT, understand how to screen, how to treat, and how to manage. We serve as a convener in bringing all teams together. Our physicians, our scientists, our families really truly collaborate. And if you've been to one of our conferences, you will have witnessed that firsthand. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. And people can chat and have conversations with the experts to help get the important information that you need for your own health. And we're a funder investing in grants, fellowship, the biobank, and clinical trials. And most importantly, we are providing support for all of our HHT community and our families. You have been the building blocks for the last 35 years, and it's basically upon your shoulders that we have grown to where we are now on the brink of some transformational therapeutics. And for that, we are truly grateful. And the best is yet to come. We are working very, very hard to ensure that the patient is always at the center of everything we do. As I mentioned, we're expanding and supporting our treatment centers. We are providing funding for fellowships for young people. We want to continue to attract young scientists, young physicians into this area of study so that we always have a robust pipeline of people that are interested, learning, and growing and taking the lead. And we are so fortunate to have such a dedicated, committed group of professionals. We are partnering with biotech and pharma. Just 5 years ago, we had no relationships at all. And I'm so excited to share with you this evening some of the progress that we are making. We have been funding seed grants since 2004, and really it's the patient community that provided the funding to make all of this happen, improving our patient care globally wherever you live in the world. We're investing in groundbreaking research to accelerate our breakthroughs and ensuring that our research network is always patient-centered, that we have a seat at the table in helping to design trials, understanding what quality of life truly means for patients, and what valuable endpoints there should be in trials. And we host important education and scientific conferences for both our patients and our physicians together. Some of our major accomplishments through the years was the first thing we attempted to do in 2003. Actually, it was a 2-year process, 2001 to 2003. We successfully obtained the release of the patents. Our genes were patented. So prior to 2003, there was no genetic testing. If you were suspected of having HHT, you had a brain MRI and a CAT scan. And then you still didn't know because that could change years later. So we set about doing that. We were successful. We raised funds and we were able to launch 3 genetic testing laboratories, 1 in Canada and 2 in the United States. We increased patient access to expert care by expanding our centers of excellence. When I was diagnosed, there was 1 center of excellence, and that was at Yale. We now are at 32 and counting in North America and 55 globally. We are focused on capacity building in creating our therapeutic arm so that we can make sure that we are accelerating our partnerships with our biotech and pharma companies to give them the necessary support that they need in working with our physicians and researchers to get better treatments for us. Making strategic investments in mechanistic, translational, and clinical research. What does that mean? Strategic mechanistic research is focused on what happens in the gene that we have, the mutations that we have that give rise to the AVMs and telangiectasia that form. And Dr. Christopher Hughes, one of our scientific directors several years ago, always said this. It's true, and it stuck with me. It's mechanism, mechanism, mechanism. You must understand what is going wrong before you can begin to correct it. So we have been successful in making sure that we were investing in that type of research to uncover that information. And then, as I said, after 15 years of Capitol Hill advocacy, we were able to achieve federal funding for our centers of excellence for care coordination for a natural history registry called CHORUS, and an important continuing medical education program in the United States. So let's talk about how you can empower yourself and make an impact. We need your support for our advocacy efforts. Sharing your story is critically important. And I've been doing this work now since 2004, going to Capitol Hill. On the left side of the screen is an organization that has been really successful for 30 years in growing a national network, and that's our goal. Whether it's writing a letter, whether it's visiting your local Congress office or Senate office locally, whether it is coming to DC during our Capitol Hill days, our doctors come, our staff go. Your stories are incredibly powerful and are a reason that we have been able to achieve federal funding. But we really want to grow this network nationally. We've been, for the last 2 years, held Capitol Hill congressional briefings on what HHT is, what the impact is on families, not only on your health, but emotionally, what happens, with work, missed days of work, as well as the financial impact, not the least, to ourselves and certainly the healthcare system. So now more than ever, we need your support. We have to protect and expand our funding. We partnered with Diagonal Therapeutics to produce a healthcare burden study on the cost, which is astronomically high. We provide and give you tools and training, and it's actually a fun day. We go to offices. We have the appointments are made for you. If you can't attend, you could participate virtually or writing letters. There are plenty of ways to do that. So that's one small way of empowering yourself to make an impact. Let's move on to education, our conferences and webinars. And this is something that is really critical. We have a very robust resource library for patients and for providers, healthcare providers, whether it be nurses, school nurses, genetic counselors, physicians, pediatricians, all types of specialists. So we have a plethora of patient and physician brochures. You could download them. They are free. Share them widely because it will help you and your family, but it will also help increase diagnosis with the more health professionals that are educated. They can diagnose another family for sure. These are some examples from our conferences, and I don't know about you, but until I went to my first HHT conference, I never met anybody outside my family who had this disease. And when you go to a conference and you walk into a room of 150 or 200 people, it's really pretty emotional, I would say, in that suddenly you realize that no one has to face this alone, that this is a very connected community, and our goal is we bring in 15 to 20 providers. We have genetic counselors, we have nurses, we have physicians, and they give a wonderful presentation on all aspects of HHT where you can ask all the questions and get the information that you need to feel empowered to take charge. I would invite you to explore our resource library to help you navigate care. We have also a lot of webinars. We've been doing webinars since 2021. And so we have webinars on therapeutics, on sclerotherapy, on nosebleed management, on liver, on pediatrics, on brain and lung, and anything that psychological impact. All of those things are critically important. So I invite you to see those on demand. There are organ-specific fact sheets and our digital guidelines. We did create this 48-page publication that is meant to be so user-friendly to guide to managing your HHT. Why are guidelines important? Because they are evidence-based. They're based on evidence, on research rather than conjecture. So it's really important. There are fact sheets you could take to your doctor. You can make checklists. I suffer from anemia, and I need iron infusions. You can share it's meant to be shared with your physicians and your nurses and nurse practitioners. So there are lots of tools that we would invite you to take advantage of. So I would ask you to join the movement to stay informed. Sign up for updates. Social media is wonderful and it's great for everyone to share how they're feeling. It's important to be sure that you're signing up for updates that we are distributing. Become your family's ambassador. Share resources and information from those who might not really be ready to to acknowledge that they have HHT, but if they have children and grandchildren, it's clearly really, really important. So share the resources, share them with your with family members, and become your ambassador. The same with your physicians. And we put important guidance for anything that's new on anemia management. We put out statements, use of Avastin, which is also known as bevacizumab, and any other important updates as they come to light. Again, get connected with our patient and family network nationwide and globally to increase funding for care management and research. And I would say, supporting the cause, advocating, participating in research, donating, and spreading awareness are all ways that we can all play a part. So we are here for you. You can sign up at hhtinfo@curehht.org. That is our phone. We have a super, super staff, the best around, and are deeply committed to being there to be helpful for you. I'm going to switch gears right now and talk a little bit about research. We received a grant in 2019. We were one of 30 organizations that were funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Rare as One initiative, and that was creating a patient-centered network. And there was a lot of training involved. And with that funding, what I chose to do was develop a therapeutic arm. And that was primarily why. Because I really felt that with a patient-centered approach, we are the experts. We need to fast track life-changing therapies for our community through engagement. So we created an in-house team. We still need to add to that team to harness scientific opportunities and drive our impact. And really making sure that we're helping to recruit patients for trials that could benefit the whole community and get things approved. The very fact that we still do not have an HHT approved therapy by the FDA is unconscionable, and we aim to change that. So Cure HHT is a catalyst in bringing together our scientists, physicians, our patients to translate that into advanced therapies. So some of you may be wondering, is gene therapy on the horizon? It sure can be, and it is changing and refining. And it's in the news for a few diseases, and that as it refines, we will be advocating for that. Clinical trials is critical. We are moving away from interventions, the bipolar cautery and the lasers, to the era of therapeutics. We need to really be treating this disease at its biology to stop the bleeding, to reverse the AVMs. Wouldn't that be nice? To prevent them from forming in the first place. And we will be using AI and data in our tech to help drive that. So part of the Chan Zuckerberg initiative and part of that therapeutic arm was creating a research roadmap. This is also on our website, but we categorized it into 3 areas. The first was research. And so, some basic questions were, can we understand how AVMs form and function? Okay, these are basic questions we needed answers to. Treatment, how can we better measure and predict bleeding severity? These were some of the questions. And awareness, how can we better identify everyone using genetic testing? And how can we improve awareness? So we do have a map. We know where we're going. And what I'm thrilled to share with you is all of these check marks represent investments that we've made in the roadmap since 2022. So there were 32 areas, and we have invested in the majority, and I'm going to share a few more with you this evening. So these slides are courtesy of Cassie Friday, our Director of Research and Grant Programs, and I'm grateful to her for these slides. So we're going to divide this into therapies, looking at different trials and partnerships, data, and what that means in our 2 registries, Chorus and HHT Connect. What are some of our research tools, our biobank, our research app, our diagnostic criteria, and then our Cure HHT funded projects? There are four that we have on the horizon, a few that have started and a few that are slated for 2027. Our Centers of Excellence Network, our new criteria and recertification and fellowships. You would have heard from Tanya Campitello last week during her webinar about centers, so I'd encourage you to listen to that one, but I'll go through just a brief overview. And then our community in terms of our scientific conference and our hubs. So the first drug is pazopanib. You might have been reading about this now for 10 years. We've been investing in this drug, and I'm really thrilled to say that the phase 3 has been completed. All participants have been enrolled and randomized, and so now they're going through an open label extension. This is a pill. Some of you may be in this trial, have been in this trial, have taken this drug. So our goal now is working with the FDA and a partner to bring this drug to market. So that remains to be in the future, but that's something that we're actively working on. What I'm really thrilled about are the industry partnerships that have developed in the last 5 years. Vidaris Therapeutics, you will see, has a drug. They have been successful in completing a phase 2. The drug is called engacertib, and it basically looks at reducing bleeding. They are finalizing the study with Cure HHT to validate our trial outcomes for. They're getting ready to launch a phase 3, and it's going to be global with a lot of sites. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be in the very near future, 26 into fall 26, 27. Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, they've completed a successful phase 1 of ALN 6400 in healthy volunteers. That's again looking at decreasing bleeding. And they have a phase 2 global study that's fully enrolled, and they will be certainly moving that forward as well. Tectonic Therapeutics is currently running a phase 1. Their asset is TX2100, and they are preparing to launch their trial for patients in Australia in the summer of 2026, and they also will be global. Then we have Diagonal Therapeutics that launched a phase 1 of Diag 723 for patients in New Zealand. That's just in June of 2026. In Australia and other sites to follow. They also have aggressive plans globally, and we have played a key role in recruitment and part of the clinical trial network that we have launched. Terremoto Biosciences plans to launch TER 4480 globally, and that's in the fall of 2026. And Adavastic Bio, and they are launching a trial for patients with ATV 1601 in the summer of 2026. And it's exciting that they received a fast track designation from the FDA, and they are setting up a patient advisory council. So all of these studies will be global. I would encourage you to share this widely with your family members. And when I talk about hope along the way, we have entered the age of therapeutics, and this is really exciting. For the first time, we are moving away from interventions that help create more AVMs to those that have promise in not only reducing bleeding, but preventing AVMs, reversing them in many organs of the body. So I hope you share in this excitement. What was really critical in our patient-centered network when we held this meeting with the Chan Zuckerberg research group was that what was it that we didn't have that we needed to accelerate our progress? And all of our scientists and all of our physicians said, you need a biorepository. So that was the first thing that we did. We funded a biorepository, and Cure HHT owns it. And Cassie Friday has really led this. This is all of her incredible work, in which we have had 103 donors in 2 years, 63 AVM tissue samples. It's one thing to test things in animals. You need human tissue. We have blood, plasma, serum. We've taken samples. If you've been to a conference, we've had phlebotomists there, and HHT patients have been only too willing to participate in research. And we distribute this to our academic partners, our researchers, and our pharma partners. We have a postmortem donation program established as well. And we've been able to, we're going to talk about the women's initiative and women's and pregnancy, how HHT may be affecting that as well. So we've been able to get things like placenta, uterus, lung, liver. So these are really critical. If you know of anyone having active surgery, we will gladly take the tissue samples. A generous donor stepped forward to update our diagnostic criteria. You've heard of the Curacao criteria. That was established in the year 2000. That's 26 years ago. So we are updating that. There's a working group that's been established. A generous donor stepped forward to fund this, and we'll be looking to expand our HHT diagnosis to build on what was done. And it's a 14-member expert group that is coming together and looking at epistaxis telangiectasia, family history genetics, visceral manifestations, and we're going to be revising the application and use of the criteria because you all know that it isn't that sensitive in children in pediatrics. I'm really excited about the Women's Health Initiative. This is an area that, thanks to social media, I was looking and seeing what people were talking about. And there were a lot of women talking about hemorrhage during childbirth or heavy menstrual bleeding or hysterectomies in their 30s and that they had AVMs, and yet no doctor had been thinking about this. So we put together a generous group of donors that, and this project has launched just 2 months ago, and it's the first initiative dedicated to women's health, where we will be studying pregnancy, menstrual bleeding, and hormonal impacts, collecting and analyzing placentas and uterine tissue, and building evidence for safe guidance. And everything is basic science is an underpinning to all of this, but we'll be looking at menses and reproductive years, pregnancy, and then and perimenopause and postmenopause. We have a liver and heart working group that we are going to be launching in Q3. Another generous group of donors came together. This is an area that's really, really important. We have to investigate how HHT is affecting the liver and heart, and it isn't always transplant is the answer. So we need to be able to intervene before becoming symptomatic. So we need to identify what these predictors are for liver development and progression. What are the clinical triggers for getting symptomatic or becoming symptomatic, and investigating heart-related and pulmonary complications such as pulmonary hypertension that are linked to liver vascular malformations, and develop evidence-based treatment protocols. We also have a small subgroup working on PAH and HHT. And that, again, is another group of donors. This is very important to them and their family, understanding it's a very small subset of patients that have HHT and pulmonary arterial hypertension. So what is the genetic underpinning there? Understanding the hemodynamics, the different types of treatments, what are the responses to these treatments? So that is another working group. We also funded in this year, in addition to all of those studies, we are funding some really, I think, exciting work. The Broad Institute, we provided a grant to them for $200,000. A donor has stepped forward in looking at antibody therapies to target our broken pathways in HHT. So, and really, really exciting. They are from outside the HHT community, but they are really spot on. We have Dr. Speaker Cotter at Stanford. They are using stem cells derived at Stanford and uncovering and focused really on pulmonary arterial hypertension. Dr. Drivas and Patel at the University of Pennsylvania is looking at a risk score to predict which patients with and without an HHT diagnosis are at high risk for a life-threatening brain AVM rupture. And then at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Weiss and his team is quantifying really, it's for our centers of excellence, what's the real financial return in all the imaging and all of the treatments that go on. And this is really for the business teams at the centers so that they can help provide more resources for our centers of excellence from their hospitals. So, how can we speed all this up? And that is to participate in research, observational, clinical, tissue donation, surveys, friends, and family. Let's talk about the scientific conference. Our 16th scientific conference is occurring in October in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. We are very excited. We have a really unprecedented number of sponsors. We have over 150 abstracts received so far. We have travel awards that we provide for young scientists and young clinicians. They don't necessarily have the budgets at their institutions. So we provide travel awards for them to attend the meeting. We want those young people coming back. And we have 9 speakers that are confirmed, a number of them from outside the HHT community, because we think that they can always, outside people can always provide a new perspective for our people. But we have grown from just 60 people attending in 1996 in Edinburgh, Scotland, to our meeting last year, or I'm sorry, 2 years ago in France. So it was very, very exciting. Briefly, I want to touch on our centers of excellence. We are growing. As I mentioned, Tanya spoke to this last week. We have redone our guidelines for what it is to be a center of excellence. We are going to be recertifying them. We are doing site visits, and we are growing them, not only in North America, but globally. We know that we want people to have access to care wherever they can be, and patients should be seen at an HHT treatment center where they really know how to treat you and your family. So a list of our centers can be found on our website, but these are all of the types of specialties that are enlisted in a comprehensive center of excellence. As I mentioned, we were able to obtain funding from the Department of Health and Human Services for the very first time. Hemophilia has been receiving funding for about 40 years. In contrast, like they have 150 centers that are funded. And we've been able at least to get started with funding 16. We hope to grow to 20. We have a long way to go, but at least we were able to finally crack this. So we want to expand access and coordination. And we also importantly was to develop this data collection registry. And I'm very excited to say that patients participated at our 16 centers that were funded. The enrollment goals were ahead of schedule. This was published in the Journal of Blood, a very prestigious journal. And it really, why is this important? Because it shapes the future of our strategies. And our goal is to grow this to all of our US sites and at least 10,000 people by 2034. What are some of the key findings? Well, 21-year was the average delay between our first symptom and diagnosis, many times nosebleeds. 95% experienced nosebleeds, 76% moderate to severe mucosal bleeding, 30% chronic GI bleeding, 68%. That's high. Close to 70% of our families have iron deficiency and or anemia. 41% require iron infusions. 25% require blood transfusions. Why is this important? This is important because it's actual data, and we can show these gaps to demonstrate why we need more funding on the national to our legislators. It's really critical. And the other key point is that when biotech and pharma and other folks are developing therapies, it's really important that they be able to look at some of this data and be able to determine that, how, because before this it was an estimate. Well, we think maybe 20% have GI bleeding. Well, no, actually 30% do. And no, almost 70% have iron deficiency or anemia. So it really helps them in their guideline development therapeutic approaches. We also have a patient-reported registry that you can sign up for. And this meets all of the criteria. It's under the auspices of NORD, and it's a global registry. And again, driving new improved treatments, speeding up clinical trials, making a difference for generations, and shares your journey. So more information is on the website. So why is this important? It helps researchers understand how it impacts you. It tracks HHT over time to identify what is the progression of this disease? What are the patterns and symptoms and complications? What are the factors that influence patient outcomes? And these studies inform clinical trials and guidelines. So ongoing advocacy is important to continue our funding program for our centers of excellence and for us to form more centers. Many of you often talk about how difficult it is for how many physicians don't know anything about HHT. Well, part of this initiative, what we got federal funding for, is an HHT continuing education courses. This is all online. This is available to your physicians locally, your pediatricians, your healthcare providers. So there are online courses and they're on demand, and then we have several in development. This all can be found on our website. So, so our contact information is here. I would encourage you to stay connected with us at all times. And I'm going to conclude by saying, because I want to hear from you and your questions, our mission is to find a cure while saving our lives. We know that, and improving the well-being for families affected. Our North Star is that we really want this to be a readily recognized disorder. We're making progress where all of us can have access to expert care and FDA-approved treatment options to improve quality and longevity of life. So happy HHT Global Awareness Day. We're 35 years strong, and together we will work toward a cure. Thank you.
Marianne, thank you. That was that was amazing. It's 35 years of a lot of hard work and dedication and so much effort on your part, and we appreciate it so much. We do have some questions from some of our participants, so I wanted to throw those out to you. We had one participant that asked, they were diagnosed with HHT, but the gene wasn't found. And they're asking what research is being done to find gene mutations not identified yet.
So my first question would be, how long ago was that testing done? Because the genetic testing, when I was diagnosed, it was done in 2004, 2005. There have been tremendous advances in exome sequencing. So the question back would be, was that recent? And if it was a while ago, the certainly exome sequencing, there's the power now of and deep dive into genetic sequencing has dramatically changed. There is a small percentage between 5 and 10% of genes that haven't been identified, but most of them have been. So if it's been a while, my suggestion would be get it done again, where you can be sure that it is exome sequencing. There is a team at Broad Institute that part of the Chan Zuckerberg team. They have really what I would, I'm no scientist, but what I would consider a super powered exome sequencing, where they have been able to find the genes in families with HHT who had negative testing.
And we also have resources on our website about genetic testing, and we have some brochures here in the office that we can certainly mail out to you that has more information about that. One of our other patients asked, why it's important to get genetic testing, and is it critical for HHT management?
So that's a really good question, and I'm a big advocate of genetic testing. And the reason is, not only will your additional family members, and believe me, I've heard from long lost cousins people I don't even know that contacted me because they can determine if their family members are at risk, right? So, but importantly also, I think the way treatment may be going in the future, we may solve, and there might be therapies that are directed toward different genetic mutations. So we don't know that yet. There is some hypothesis that maybe some treatments that exist today might be more effective, let's say, on people that have ACVRL1 versus endoglin and the reverse. But that comes into personalized medicine. So looking to the future, I would say I would rather know my genetic mutation. It's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah. I know you touched on our scientific conference we host it every 2 years. We have a patient that's asking what is the scientific conference? What happens at the scientific conference?
It's 4.5 days of science that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and goes till 6 o'clock at night. We have invited speakers, and then so what happens is you have people, our scientific and medical community that submit abstracts, and they are scored. And so the higher the score, people get or have oral presentations, and they're challenged about their research. It's really, really interesting to be an observer, but you are learning cutting edge what people are working on. Collaborations are born. People will stand up and say, well, I think that's how the Avastin study came together. Well, you have 30 patients and you have 50 and you have 30 here. Let's put everybody together and let's study this. And so that first paper, the Inhibit trial, came together just that way. But you have basic science and you have the clinical science. And so you have really both audiences sitting there because the physicians are hearing all about mechanism, right? And the basic science, they're working in the lab all the time. So they are not interfacing with patients. And suddenly they are hearing all about the manifestations from the physicians and how patients are affected. So it's very, very powerful. You have just new ideas that are brought forward. It's a one of a kind, and we have such a collaborative community. They challenge each other, which is good. You want that.
Mhm. And typically after the conference is over, we have, summaries about it and we put
Yes.
things out on social media and email and
Webinars.
information. Yes. And webinars. So our patient community can hear all about what our scientists were up to at the SciCon.
It's
So it's
always bringing it back to the patient community. It's
Mhm.
important.
So important. I did want to touch on the clinical trials. You had a big screen, a big slide about that. And so I had some questions about the diagonal trial starting in Australia. That's already
Mhm.
launched there. Tell us a
Right.
little bit about that and then how that will and make its way around the world and here to
Right.
the United States.
Right. Diagonal launched first in Asia, first in New Zealand, and then Australia, and then in Germany. And their plan is for a very robust trial in Europe and all throughout North America, more than likely late fall 2026, later this year. Stay tuned.
And terrific. For those of you you can look it up on the website. We encourage you to come and we get to tour the lab, which will
Yeah,
be really phenomenal and get to meet all the
absolutely.
movers and shakers that are working so hard on these therapeutics. Now, what about our friends up north in Canada? They're asking, is there going to be some clinical trials launching in Canada
Oh,
that they'll be able
yes.
to enroll in?
Absolutely, 100%. Canada is absolutely involved in all of these clinical trials. In fact, we launched Cure HHT Canada and working with our Canadian board up there so that we are, one continent and absolutely 100%. Yes.
Oh, that's great. I did want to ask, we do have a couple questions about the biobank.
Yeah.
And you had a great slide about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about how people can get involved and what that entails?
Yeah, so the biorepository is so Cassie Friday is the person that manages that program for us and does a phenomenal job. So if someone is going to have surgery, for example, they could reach out to us and Cassie would get in touch with them. She works together with the team. In fact, there was someone that was having a lobectomy recently. And she was able to work with the pathologists at the center or the hospital. She's done this a number of times. She was able to secure a placenta recently. But she works one-on-one with the hospital, and there's a certain protocol of how the samples are stored and the tissue is stored and it's sent FedEx and we send labels. And our biorepository is housed at Mass General. It's not part of the center, it's its own entity because we wanted to make sure it was open access to everyone. It's Dr. Liss's lab, who has a pancreatic cancer lab. So, there are very stringent conditions and I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it. But I will say that at different conference events and things like that, we have had phlebotomists come in to take blood samples, and we have done all of that. But there is a protocol, and if you know that you're having surgery or planning a surgery, get in touch with us and we can make that all happen.
And it's a great way to get involved.
Yeah,
People that want to do something and they want to give back. It is a great way to be able to do
yeah,
that.
for sure.
I did want to ask you, you had a slide about the guidelines, and I
Yep.
shared our great guidelines booklet that's available.
Yeah.
So I had a question from a patient asking, when will the next update be? And will there be new areas added to the guidelines?
So I was able to secure funding from several donors. This is not an inexpensive uh, conference to put together, and it's usually a year process to plan all of this. And because it is very rigorous, so I was able to secure funding and we are having a guidelines. The next one will be, we're hoping late spring of 2027. I was just on a meeting on that today, and several areas that need to be addressed. Pulmonary AVMs have not been updated since 2008. So that's number one. Diffuse pulmonary AVMs will be included. Obviously, nosebleeds, anemia, uterine AVMs, pH, PAH, GI, liver, brain. We made a commitment that we were not going to let, a decade go by before there's so much research going on. You need to be constantly updating these guidelines. So when we undertake fundraising, that's what dollars are going for. It's really giving back to the community because they're evidence-based, they're research-based, and everyone has to come to consensus. So I can tell you that we are looking at late spring 2027.
And who participates in that guidelines conference? Who?
So it's physicians from all throughout the world and patients, because the patient perspective is really important. We have patients representing every continent, and people are broken into different work streams. It's really critical. So, again, literature is reviewed, and we look at what the patient experience is too. It's critical.
Well, we're going to be ending a couple minutes left, but this has been great. But I wanted to ask you on our 35th anniversary and HHT Awareness Day, what moves you? What drives you? What is your biggest hope for this community? You've been so invested.
Good question. Treatment breakthroughs, FDA approved therapies that longevity of life.
Well, thank you, Marianne. Appreciate you being on tonight and everybody that participated. We hope you'll continue to support us in all the ways that Marianne gave you, different ways that you can get involved and participate. Awareness Month goes on until the end of this month, and we hope you'll help us reach our goal so that we can continue to do all of this terrific, important work. So thank you so much. We hope you all have a
Nope.
really nice evening.
Thanks everyone for joining. It's great that you were here.
Thank you.